seldom that has come to me. Happiness comes so seldom that has come to me. Running back to the end of my life, Jesus saved me time. Happiness comes so seldom that has come to me. Happiness comes so seldom that has come to me. Happiness comes so seldom that has come to me. Running fast for the edge of my life, Jesus saved me time. Happiness comes so seldom that has come to me. Happiness comes so seldom that has come to me. Happiness comes so seldom that has come to me. Running fast for the edge of my life, Jesus saved me time. Happiness comes so seldom that has come to me. Happiness comes so seldom that has happiness comes so seldom that has come to me. Running fast to the edge of my life, Jesus saved me time. Happiness comes so seldom that has come to me. Happiness comes so seldom that has come to me. Happiness comes so seldom that has come to me. Running fast for the edge of my life, Jesus saved me time. Happiness comes so seldom that has come to me. Happiness comes so seldom that has come to me. Happiness comes so seldom You took me in, and you washed away my sin. You ready? You're listening to the Real Pineapple Podcast Network. Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, days, and gays. This is the Real Pineapple. It's your humble host, Hunter, here. I hope you're safe. I hope you're well. How's your day? Seriously, what has this week been? Okay, so look, we have to talk about this. You know, I've always promised y'all that I would be honest with you, keep it real with y'all, and I'm gonna be straight up. This last 24 hours have just been it's just been insane. It's been fucking nuts. Actually, pardon me. If you're listening to the audio, this is me lighting a joint. Here we go. So, I personally have been pretty decently quiet on socials. If you follow me on socials, they'll be listed in the description. But if you follow me on Blue Sky or Threads or Facebook, whatever, I have simply said that violence is not the answer. There's never an excuse. I mean, obviously, fucking, wow. I'm God. I am tired. Obviously, you're protecting yourself, but what happened yesterday wasn't or a couple days ago now. God, like it feels like it was forever ago already. It's insane to me that this has happened. I just I don't know what to say anymore. I really don't. This has been an incredibly gross time, and I think back to November. I think back to where I was in November. You know, I didn't have a job at the time. I was really struggling. And I will just, preface everything by saying, if you're one of these people who's just feeling exhausted, I feel you. I'm right there with you. I have not felt this tired. But life is just exhausting right now. Everything is just so much. It's so much right now. And everything just feels so heavy and so intense. And I don't really know where to start with this. I sat down a couple times earlier today trying to think of because yeah, by the way, people, any pauses you hear, that's me hitting my joint. Haven't smoked today and but for me, one thing that really gave me a little bit of hope was seeing some people that I really respect their opinion having very profound things to say. My friend Deanna in particular, shout out to her, had some incredibly profound things to say about this whole situation. But then on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, I had to unfriend. I just straight up blocked about 20 people, like 15, probably like 10 on Facebook and maybe 5 on Instagram. but I don't follow like 20, 30 people on Instagram. Like people that I was like, oh, you're a fellow artist, let's support each other. And then seeing what some people were saying, I was like, oh yeah, fuck you. I don't need to follow you. Fuck that. And this is where honestly, as a as an empathetic person, I'm really torn. I'm torn in a couple ways. So for me, Charlie Kirk, so to give you a little peek behind the curtain, when I started seeing Alea, we're coming up on 8 years as of next month, which is insane. But when we started seeing each other, she came over one night and I was watching Fox News. And she freaked out. She was like, why the hell are you watching Fox News? I was like, look, I always consume a certain amount of media. I don't just read or watch stuff that I like. I usually will watch an hour or two of Fox News a week because I want to see what their talking points are, what their opinions are, what they're saying, et cetera, et cetera. And I think for me, that's actually been a really good thing because Fox News, as horrendous and terrible as Fox News is, and let me be clear, Fox News sucks. They are fucking terrible. I cannot stand Fox News. But you never know how to talk to people if you don't consume a little bit of their media. And one thing that I've really noticed is that it's not even the Republican Party anymore. It just feels like, what level of extreme are you to Trump? And I think that's the big thing with Charlie Kirk. I was familiar with Charlie Kirk in the way that I'm familiar with Ben Shapiro. Like, I know that they've said terrible things, but it's like, I try very hard to not know too much about certain Republican pundits. I know about, my Hannity, your Hannitys, your Glenn Beck's, your Tommy Lawrence, what's his name, Gutfeld, that douchebag, those people. But what I thought was at least interesting about Charlie Kirk is that he would kind of go to these colleges and, quote, debate people, unquote. And what I'll say myself too is it's really easy to debate an 18-year-old who is just starting in college when you're, in your 30s. But to be honest, I think that's kind of the point. I think that if Charlie Kirk was having debates with, people with PhDs and stuff like that, I think the conversations would be going differently. And the thing is too, he was getting smoked more often than not in those interactions that he was having. And so there really was just this point where I would see a clip here and there from him, and I just kind of go like, what's your point? Like, there is a Ben Shapiro already. There's already a Tommy Lauren. There's a Megyn Kelly. Like you're just another one of these people who blends in with people who parrot the same shit that I hear, from Bill Maher and Rogan and all these, other assholes. But what I will give Charlie Kirk some credit for is he believed this bullshit. I don't think Ben Shapiro believes it's bullshit. I think Ben Shapiro is a very bitter wannabe screenwriter who recognized, oh, I can grift and make money, and so I'll go ahead and do that. And that's exactly what Charlie Kirk was. And I think my main point of frustration comes into the fact that people are already trying to make this man a martyr. They're trying to go ahead and spin this like this is some incredible tragedy. And let me be clear. It is a tragedy because his kids witnessed their father get killed in front of them. That is a tragedy. That is a genuinely tragic thing. But, and I think I've shared this story before, one thing that's really made me angry is back when Sean Connery died, and I can't remember, it was like a year ago, something like that. But when Sean Connery passed, I'm not a huge Sean Connery fan. I didn't grow up with the Bond films with Connery or anything like that, so I didn't really have this, this childhood attachment to him. My childhood attachment to Sean Connery was The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which is a horrible movie. That was my childhood attachment to Sean Connery until I saw Finding Forrester. So, but at the time, I made this comment that, hey, Sean Connery died, wife being piece of shit, which he was. He admitted several times and fucking bragged about the fact that he used to beat his wife. And one of my friends was like, wow, too soon. And I'm like, and that's my problem with people right there in a nutshell. Just because someone has died does not mean that it erases all the bad shit they did when they're alive. And I don't understand why that's such a hurdle for people, because it seems to be. And I don't get it. Like, people hold you to a standard based on your actions and on your words, as people should. And yet this man, who admittedly was bragging about the fact he used to hit his wife, really got no consequence from it. So when I hear people talking about Charlie Kirk saying like, oh my gosh, how, like, I've actually seen people go, how dare you bring up this quote? It's like, he said it. People aren't making this shit up. He's the one who went ahead and said these things. And so I have compiled just a small list. Because again, I have already been talking to people about this more than I really fucking want to. So I compiled a small list, a very small list of some quotes of his that I think are more than fair to bring up. So if y'all would indulge. So just a couple here. We made a huge mistake when we passed the Civil Rights Act in the mid 1960s. Really? We did, huh? I can't stand the word empathy, actually. I think empathy is a made up new age term that it does a lot of damage. If I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, oh boy, I hope he is qualified. When Paul Pelosi, Nancy Pelosi's husband, got attacked in their home, in their fucking house, Kirk actually said that person was an amazing patriot and actually called for people to post bail for this person. He said that the the colonizing of Britain made the world decent. And then the last three that I'll bring up, because a woman, rightfully so, asked him how he would advise his daughter, who I believe is 10 now, but how he would advise his daughter if she were, heaven forbid, to get SA'd and become pregnant. And he flat out said that that the baby would be delivered. I'm going to come back to that, so keep that one in mind. The last two I'll share. We must also be real. We must be honest with the population. Having an armed citizenry comes with a price, and that is part of liberty. But I think it's worth it. I think it's worth it to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment. After Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce got engaged here recently, and this is honestly one of the more disturbing things, and this goes back to a theme that I've been seeing. He straight up, he was basically having a fantasy about her becoming conservative, because he straight up said, submit to your husband, Taylor. You are not in charge. My feelings about Taylor Swift aside, the thing that really grosses me out about that statement is he could have said, just become a housewife. That would have been bad enough, but he could have just said, become a housewife, stop touring. Like, while that's still gross, that goes down a lot easier than submit to your husband. Because what he's saying there, he's not saying submit to your husband like, hey, stop touring, be a power couple, work the red carpet and just stop working. He's saying give up everything that you are individually for the sake of your husband. And that's where the ick just goes from ick to what the actual fuck. Charlie Kirk was an extremely gross person. He said a lot of gross things about a lot of people. I just gave you an example right there. But I'm not going to sit here and celebrate the fact that the man is dead, because again, his kids witnessed that shit in front of him. Those kids are going to be going through a lot of therapy for years because of this shit. But what I will say is that for the people who were like saying, "Oh my god, this is such a tragedy," and "Oh my god," like I haven't heard y'all saying that shit about Palestine. I didn't see y'all saying that shit about fucking George Floyd. I haven't heard you saying that shit when Trump is talking about resurrecting Confederate statues. If you're gonna go ahead and show empathy across the fucking board. Don't show it just for the people who have died. All due respect, the people who've died and passed on, they don't have to worry about this world right now. The ones that are still living in it, like us, we do have to live. We do have to worry about this shit. So where's your empathy for the people who are being snatched off the street by ICE right now? Where's your sympathy for the people who are being separated from their fucking families and being deported illegally? There is literally a place in Florida that is thankfully being shut the fuck down. There's literally a place called Alligator Alcatraz. Alligator Alcatraz. That is a term that exists in our world. And I have barely seen anyone talking about that shit. Like, where is your outrage for that shit? Alligators are eating people. Republicans were laughing about it. They were laughing about people being fed to alligators. Where is your fucking conscience? And I will be the first to admit, maybe I'm giving people too much credit. This is where the my empathy does come out, because I'm sitting here, I'm going, okay, these people voted for Trump again. Morons, absolute morons. I'll start there. You voted for this man again. How the fuck could you? Number one, start there. But maybe just maybe there's a bottom. Maybe there is an actual level of depravity that these people finally go, enough is enough. Maybe there is. And now I'm just starting to realize that is a bottomless pit. It does not exist. Because when and I'm so sorry. I'm like losing my mind here. When those people were killed in Minnesota, the flag wasn't put at half mast for them, but it's done for Charlie Kirk. Like, I think this is part of it too. I think people are scared. And I'm talking about scared about being shot, or I think people are actually scared and are slowly, even though it's been at tortoise's pace for many people, I think people are really starting to realize that they got played. Now, I know a lot of people, like myself included, are saying, like, you would think they would know they got played the first time from that first Trump term. But a lot of these people, the cult-like behavior, it's going to take them a lot fucking longer. But I think people are starting to connect the dots. I think people have seen the resistance to release the Epstein files. And I think people are really starting to realize, oh, fuck, maybe he just wanted to run for president again to avoid jail, which is 1,000% like why he ran for president again. That's what this is. This is just another fucking con by this man. And I think people are realizing, oh my God, I sold out my trans daughter. I sold out my friend who's a person of color. I sold out my gay friend. I sold out these people who are not white and straight, who I claim mean a lot to me. I sold them out to vote for this man, and I have nothing to show for it. I think people are realizing they got played. And I think that's scary. I think that's scary for a lot of people. And I'm not going to lie, y'all. That's where my empathy is just running on E right now. Because I don't think I have it in me anymore to forgive people for falling for this grift. Like, at some point, you have to realize that you got played. And the thing is, that's scary. It's scary having to admit to yourself that you were wrong. And this is not wrong about, like who starred in The Godfather. Like, this is not, this is not a simple thing to be wrong about. This is something that has far-reaching consequences, that we've seen. And I think people are really afraid. I think people are afraid of the conversations they're going to have. And I think people are afraid of knowing that they backed the wrong horse. I have my issues with Kamala Harris, but she would not have people getting snatched off the fucking streets. We wouldn't be pissing off all of our fucking, our probably our former allies at this point. Our tourism wouldn't be in the fucking toilet because people are afraid to fucking come here. Like, things would be a lot different if Kamala was running the White House. And again, look, we Democrats by no means are perfect. And I have been, quite frankly, appalled by the lack of fight by a lot of Democrats. It's like, y'all, pull your head out of your ass. Like, you got to start recognizing how fucking dire these times are that we're in. But I'm not going to sit here and celebrate the fact that a man is dead, but I'm also not going to sit here and continue to be gaslighted into feeling empathy for him. Saying that people of color basically don't deserve to be happy. Not even basically saying that's what he was saying. Black people were happier and better when they were slaves. Talking about how being trans or LGBTQ is a disease. You don't get to say that. Is not a difference of an opinion. That's a difference in ethics. And at the end of the day, and I'm going to say something, this is going to really make people uncomfortable, but it's true. What did he think? And I mean that in terms of, I'm sorry, you don't think your kid could be gay potentially down the road, or be bi or pan or just on the LGBTQIA spectrum, period? That if you cannot handle the concept that your child could be gay, you do not need to be a parent. If you can't deal with the concept that your kid, might have to be in a wheelchair and might need assistance, you don't deserve to be a parent. And let me be clear, he was a parent. He was not a father, because a father would want better for his kids. A father would want their kids to be able to be who they want to be freely without risk of persecution. A father would actually not say something as grotesque as what he said about his daughter. And not only do I feel for those kids because they are going to spend the rest of their years without a father, the fact of the matter is they're going to see these clips at some point. Like, they're going to have to rationalize with what their father was spewing. And I don't know how you react to that as a kid. I really don't. I mean, kids have to go through enough as it is. Like, they literally interrupted the Charlie Kirk shooting with the shooting with another shooting in Colorado. I think we're over 100 shootings this year in the U.S. Like, that's fucking insane. Columbine was over 20 years ago. And we're still dealing with this shit. Sandy Hook was 13 years ago. And we're still dealing with this. This is still a thing that happens. And I don't understand. Like, at some point, y'all, we have to call it what it is. Gun control needs to be a thing. And look, I'm not going to sit here and act like I like guns, because I really don't, honestly. I've never really understood it. My parents hunt. I don't understand getting up at 6 a.m. to shoot something. I know hunting is a, quote, sport, but how can it be a fucking sport when the animal doesn't know what game you're playing? I think it's fucking dumb. I do. I think hunting is stupid. I would never sit there and say, take all the guns away, because that's an asinine statement. But that's what Republicans always push. They're going to take all your guns away. No, we literally just want guns to be harder to get, which clearly they need to be. Because I'll give you a perfect example. If I was president, and let me be clear, if I was president, I'd be an awesome president. President Hunter would rule. Just like when you're driving a car and you are supposed to have insurance, that is a requirement. If you own a gun, you have to have a gun safe. That would be my rule. And the gun has to be kept in said safe unless you're going out hunting or you're shooting cans or whatever the fuck. Because in that way, your fucking angry teenage kid can't go ahead, just walk in your room, go in your nightstand, pull out a gun and shoot their colleagues at school the next day. That's why you get a gun safe. That would help out so much. Also, deep background checks. I have had background checks for jobs that have been deeper and more thorough than ones for guns. I don't understand it. Like, Bill Clinton, say what you will about him. He might have he might be involved in some shit that we'll maybe find out about. Who the fuck knows? But Clinton, he had that ban on assault weapons, and you know what happened? Shootings dropped tremendously. But then Republicans let that shit expire in, what was it, 2003? I want to say. And gun deaths have just gone shooting through the fucking roof. That was not an intentional pun, by the way, but I digress. So something needs to change. Like, gun control needs to be a thing. Again, I am not celebrating Charlie Kirk's death. As much as MAGA has just drained me, I am so fucking sick of this holier than now rhetoric and, oh my god, the gays are ruining everything, and like, I'm so over this bullshit, because it is bullshit. Gay people just want to have a chance to live their lives free without persecution. That's all gay people want. They're not trying to hypnotize your kids into being gay or making them draw rainbows. Like, they're not doing any of that shit. And I find it really fucking disturbing that MAGA and people who think like them will go after the LGBTQ community, yet we know that priests SAing kids is a real thing, and it's something that's been happening for decades, and we continue to just look the other way. I do not understand it. Last thing I will say in closing, because I really don't want to talk about this anymore. I really don't want to talk about this anymore. But the last thing I'm going to say is this. Why are so many of y'all comfortable standing up for the wicked when they're dead, and yet you won't hold them accountable for their actions and their speech when they're alive? I really want you to think about that, because quite frankly, I know y'all don't have an answer. And at the end of the day, your actions are not wiped away just because you died. If you want to make the world better, make the world better. Actually listen to people with other perspectives. Actually educate yourself. But so many of you refuse to do that, and you just use God as an all-encompassing smokescreen to refuse to educate yourself. And I'm fucking over it. I'm sick of having empathy for oppressors when people like me have been oppressed for hundreds of years. And that's not just me. That's women. That's other people of color. That's the LGBTQIA community. When you have enough time to paint over a rainbow crosswalk because you don't want gay people to have any sense of happiness or just a little bit of light in their lives, when there's so many other issues, that's not even a fucking issue. It's a fucking sidewalk. Like, I've seen construction take longer. Are you fucking kidding me? When you have time to do that and you refuse to actually go ahead and, address things like, oh, I don't know, healthcare, I don't know, school lunches. The fact that school lunches, the fact that Republicans have said kids don't deserve free lunch. What? Like, are you fucking kidding? You don't care about kids at all. You never have. You only care about women carrying the kid to term, because then maybe you can corrupt them and make them a Republican, when they're like 12 or something like that. But you don't care about kids at all, because if you really cared about kids, you would want them to actually be happy and have choices. But you don't want that. And it's at the point where I'm just exhausted with the mental gymnastics of this shit. So, bottom line, you said that you're better than Democrats. You said that you're going to make America great again. Cool. Pass some gun legislation. Do it. Please pass some gun legislation. I know you won't, because here's the thing. This outrage, it will mean nothing. At the end of the day, it will mean fucking nothing. They won't pass anything. They won't do anything because they love the showboat. They love to puff their chests out and go like, "We're the best. We are man. Hear us whimper." And they're not going to do anything. They're not going to do anything. But I'm over this shit. I'm over this shit. I'm over people being cruel. I'm over people being racist and sexist and being like, no, that's just my opinion. No, it's not. No, you're a fucking bigot. Call it what it is. You're a fucking bigot. All right. I feel better. I feel better now. God almighty. Hang on. Take a sip of my coffee here. All right. Anyways. But all right, I'm off the soapbox. I don't want to talk about that anymore. So, what do I want to talk about here? Yeah, sure. Let's talk about the paper first. So, the newest show on Peacock is The Paper, which is a spinoff of The Office. It is created by Greg Daniels and Michael Coleman, who also went ahead and did the U.S. version of The Office. They also went ahead and I know Greg Daniels worked on Space Force, not a good show, by the way. But Michael Coleman, he went ahead and worked on Nathan For You, which was a great fucking show. Also, the Jack and Triumph show, which was a lot of fun. And then Greg Daniels also did Upload, has worked on King of the Hill, Parks and Rec. So, I mean, there is a pedigree there as far as them having some tremendous success. But I will be the first to admit, when they announced The Paper, I just was like, why? That was my first thought. Why are you doing why are you doing like kind of an Office spinoff? This doesn't really make, I don't understand what the whole purpose of this is. And I'm going to be real, that is my same feeling after watching this show. This has a lot in season. There's a lot in common with Parks and Rec, and I'll get to that in a second. But Donald Gleason, those Gleason kids. You know him, of course, from About Time, Ex Machina, one of the best sci-fi films in the last 20 years, maybe the last 30 years, quite frankly. Fountain of Youth, which I reviewed. Don't watch Fountain of Youth; it's shit. But what I will say about this is, I think Gleason's a really good actor. I'm a fan of his. He's in that shitty Peter Rabbit, movie. Even I was like, well, like he's trying. Like I know this is shit, but like he's trying, I guess, right? Here's the thing about this show. It's not funny. That's really its biggest issue, is that it's not funny. There are a couple moments, admittedly, that I got a couple decent laughs out of it, but as I was watching the show, I just kept thinking, I could just be watching The Office, or watching Parks and Rec, or watching Married with Children, or like just so many other shows I would recommend watching instead of this. So the premise, as much as one exists in this show, Gleason plays Ned Sampson, who's the new runner of this newspaper, the Truth Teller Tower, the Toledo Truth Teller. That's what it's called. And I will say his kind of reasoning for wanting to run the paper, I think his origin story is actually kind of interesting. I actually would have appreciated some, like, a flashback episode potentially with him, because I really do think that I just think that this is just a weird show, and I don't really know like why it's kind of laid out the way it is. There's really no progression in terms of a plot either. Like, it's really just him kind of running this paper, and each episode it kind of connects, but like doesn't really, because there's not like an overarching like plot to the show. Really, the closest thing to that would be the will they, won't they with Gleason's character Ned, and then uh, Mare, who's played by Chelsea Fry, who you know from the Moody's, the Life List, the Cleaning Lady, just to name a few things. Haven't seen her in a ton of stuff. I think she's absolutely gorgeous. I think she would actually be funny too with a better script, because there are these points where I think she's trying so hard. I think she's trying so goddamn hard to make this shit work, and it just feels like she is just fighting. She's fighting. She's fighting so hard to pull something out of this. So it's really frustrating, because there is a world where I think this could work, but at the end of the day, this isn't a show that's really about making its own thing. It's about really coasting off the nostalgia of The Office. It even opens up with us going back to Scranton and going back to the former Dunder Mifflin building. And I will say, I was at least happy to see Bob Vance. I was like, oh shit, Bob Vance. Bob Vance is here. Bob Vance of Vance Refrigeration. Like, I'm happy he's at least alive. It also kind of reminds you too, like, it's been like 20 years since The Office ended. That's fucking wild. That's been that long. Or actually, wait. No, it hasn't been that long. There's no way it's been that long, right? Actually, no, I'm trying to remember, when did The Office end? Okay, so it's been 12 years. God damn. May 16th, 2013. That is fucking crazy. So I get that. But I will say, like, Oscar Nunez being back in this, as Oscar, they just say that he's back. And I guess he signed a waiver when they initially shot the Office, and he's like, "I already signed a waiver. Like, I signed a waiver. You can't use my you can't use my face. You can't use my likeness. Da da da." And then there's a little thing that just says, "Oh, actually, we can, Oscar. There was no end date on the permission for us to use our likeness," which you would think, for as smart as Oscar is, that he would have like looked at that, but apparently like not. It's a very kind of like flimsy excuse, but an excuse. So I guess I'll give them that at least. There is one thing I actually really do like about this show. They have these moments where they like flash back to like the 70s, like 60s, 70s, and it's actually like the former runner of the newspaper, and it's kind of like these newspaper like back in the day, it's a black and white sea, like it's kind of like that kind of gumshoe kind of Dick Tracy esque kind of vibe to it, but like the sequences are in black and white, and I was kind of like, oh, these are actually kind of fun, and it reminds you of when newspapers or how people got the news. And I like that. I was actually like, oh, these actually feel like inspired. Yeah, like these are actually fun. This is actually interesting. So I actually liked that, but there's only maybe like 7 or 8 of them. There's only like 7 or 8 of them in the whole 10 episode season. Outside of that, really everyone else in the show just isn't really well defined, and I understand potentially that with the second season this could improve, because I do think people forget season 1 of The Office is pretty rough. Like, you can tell there's something there, but it's a pretty rough first season. The first season, I want to say, is what, 6 episodes, I want to say, but it gets pretty. It's pretty rough. It's pretty rough sailing for that first season. But then you see what season 2 of The Office is, and that's one of the best seasons of a sitcom ever. Like, it's just pretty much bangers. Like, whether it's the Dundies, sexual harassment, the fight, booze cruise, casino night. There's a lot of banger episodes in that second season. So I fully acknowledge, that, potentially season two is just the best thing since sliced bread, and they pull their head out their ass, and it's like, oh my god, this is the best show ever. How did no one, how did no one see this coming? I fully acknowledge that is a thing, but I'll also acknowledge that as I watched this first season, the pilot episode straight up is one of the worst pilots I've ever watched in my life. I thought the pilot fucking sucked. It was a struggle to actually push forward and watch episode two, because I really was just sitting there. I'm like, who the fuck would want to watch this? This is shit. And I do think that Gleason and Frey, things I said, I do think they have some chemistry, but what they're told to say to each other, it just doesn't feel. It feels very clunky, and it feels like we don't know enough about her to really invest in the relationship. And so when, the will they, won't they starts to get ramped up, I was just kind of sitting there going, all right, I don't care if you, I don't care if you do or don't, quite frankly. I kind of just want to get past this shit. I have to bring up the thing that upset me the most. So I guess she was on the White Lotus. She was in that movie G20. Oh, she was in Passion of the Christ too. Oh, Jesus. Sabrina Impacciatori is what I'm gonna go with. I don't know what her deal is. I don't know how the character was originally written, but I would almost bet money that someone just went, like, maybe I don't know, maybe Greg Daniels or Coleman. Someone was just like, man, you know what? I love Sofia Vergara on Modern Family. Can we just have our own Gloria? Because that is 1,000% how she plays it. That's how she's presented. And the thing I will say too, though, I mean, first off, Sofia Vergara, fucking gorgeous, but she also has some great fucking comedic timing, and that's something that's pretty relevant from season one on. Like she has really good comedic timing, and she continues to get better with it as the show goes on. What's her character's name? I'm complete. Esmeralda, that's it. Esmeralda is a straight up bitch from jump. Just from jump. She's like, oh my god, this white dude is here. Ned trying to steal my job. He's gonna be my boss now. Who the fuck does he think he is? And the thing is, like, sabotage subplots are not new in sitcoms. They're actually quite common. Whether it's Dwight trying to sabotage Jim, or David Wallace. Like they've done sabotage plot lines in every sitcom. Cancelman, Jeremy Jam going in trying to sabotage Leslie in the Parks Department. It's happened. Tale as old as time. But there is like a bit of cleverness to Jeremy Jam. Like he's a piece of shit, but he does have a clever way of being slimy. Esmeralda is not clever at all. And it really has that. It reminds me of Glee in that way. Because there is that point where, like, Sue, Jane Lynch's brilliant character on there, where Sue is just such a bitch that she's not even hiding that she's trying to fuck Will over, and Will is just too much of a fucking duller to piece it together. That's how Ned feels. And it's really maddening, because she's basically looking him dead in the eye and saying, like, I will say whatever I have to say to get you fired. And it is just not registering with him. There's a point where Esmeralda straight up tells Ned, because of course Ned has a crush on Mare, but she straight up tells him that she's asexual. Which, by the way, the fact that her being asexual is such an immediate, like, oh, I don't know if I want to date her now. I was like, that's pretty gross. Okay, like like are we not going to touch on that show? Oh, all right, I guess we're not. But the thing is, he never talks to her about it until like 2 or 3 episodes later, where he kind of just randomly is like, well, I feel like this would be offensive to you because you're asexual. And she kind of looks at him like, what? And he's like, but Esmeralda said, and here's where I just completely lost it. Mare is more upset at him for believing that she was asexual than Esmeralda for saying that she was asexual. And by the end of that episode, she's talking to Esmeralda like no harm, no foul, but it's completely giving Ned the cold shoulder. And I'm sitting here going, who the fuck wrote this show? Like, it doesn't make sense. And it keeps doing shit like that over and over. There's a subplot in one episode. I don't even have I don't have the character's name here, but Esmeralda, there's a black dude on there. The cast list isn't showing me the guy, but there's like an older black dude on there. He's supposed to be the Stanley, basically. And there's this episode where Esmeralda has a dream about him, because she sees a picture of him when he was young, and she keeps having dreams that they're having sex, and then she gets mad at him for what he's doing in his dreams, and so it's the weirdest fucking subplot, and it's like it's a major part of the fucking episode. And there's multiple points where she's talking to him like, oh, like, hey, like, good to see you, and he's kind of looking at her like, why are you talking to me like that? Like, you're being weird. And it's never really resolved. She just kind of like snaps on him and gives him this necklace that's like filled with some sort of oil that's supposed to make him like make her stop dreaming of it. It's so stupid. It's so dumb. Like, I'm trying to explain this, and like the more I'm talking about it, the more I'm realizing that I'm just wasting my fucking time. The season even ends in a similar way to season 2 of The Office, where you get the whole next evolution in the will they, won't they, and I just think it's way too early in a first season of something to do the will they, won't they so intensely and make that like the base of your show, because that really is what that really is like the only thing that they kind of really do in this first season. They don't really establish any of the other characters, which is, I think, one of the biggest issues with it. I think by the end of season 1 of The Office, you at least have somewhat of an idea of who Michael is, who Dwight is, who Jim is, who Pam is. But here, Esmeralda is just a bitch. Okay. Ned is like the plucky underdog. Mare is a girl who kind of likes her job, but also like kind of doesn't. Ramona Young plays Nicole Lee. They kind of have this thing with her and Melvin Gregg's Detrick. They kind of have a thing, but that's actually kind of underdeveloped, and then they kind of feel like they're just not following up with it anymore, which is a bummer. There's a lot of issues in this show. The one dude who I think is kind of a good foil is a Tim Key, who plays Kevin Davies, and he works for this company in the building called Softies, which is basically, it's very similar to Parks and Rec in the fact that Softies is like their Sweetums. It's a toilet paper roll. It's a toilet paper company, and so they've had a couple scandals they've had to deal with. Maybe the line I laughed the hardest at the most is one of the cold opens. I think it's like episode 5 or 6. He goes ahead and he's like talking to some people at the board, and he straight up goes, "Oh yeah, we're celebrating Pride Month this month, so we're gonna have rainbow toilet paper rolls." And so they're like tossing around the boardroom table, and he even goes, yeah, if I was in charge of the company, we'd celebrate gay people year round. And I'm just like, ooh, like, ooh, okay, okay, show. Like that actually that caught me off guard in a way that I was like, oh, that's actually pretty fucking funny. Um, what up afternoon tune? Um, yeah, but so I mean that was actually kind of funny. I was like, okay, I was like, oh, I'll give you that. But I would be lying if I said that by the end of the season, um, that's the big thing is, do you think the show has done enough to warrant a second season? And when I think back to stuff like, like the brother's son or can't think of another show that's been canceled or something like Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, where I'm just like, this is a show that's consistently getting better. Why would you cancel it? There's no part of me that went, oh yeah, the paper deserves a second season. Like I couldn't care less if it got a second season. Unfortunately, it got renewed the day before it premiered for a second season, and the ratings on it are like were high. Like I don't understand it. Like I think it was like 85% on Rotten Tomatoes, 7 out of 10 on IMDb. How? How? And fuck off. Afternoon Tune saying finally Hunter hating on a white show. Dude, fuck out of here, man. But it's maddening. Like I really don't understand like what they were really going for outside of just taking advantage of the fact that, hey, this takes place in the same universe as The Office, so maybe someone will show up. By the way, no one does. I'll just spoil that for you right now. No one shows up in The Office. Oscar has a phone call with Stanley. That's literally, I think, that's like the only kind of like quote cameo unquote you get. You're not going to get Michael Scott. Like honestly, Creed working there would actually be funny, because I think Creed working at a newspaper would actually be very amusing. But yeah, there's nothing like that. And Oscar's really kind of there to just be that connecting thread to The Office to kind of remind you and kind of like dangle that carrot of, hey, maybe someone will show up. There's straight up a point where Ned is having the whole like, oh, do I tell her how I feel? And Oscar stops the show basically to go, well, someone I know used to say, if you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. And I had to just pause the show and just go, like of course you had to pull this. Like you just had to pull this random ass Michael Scott reference to try to give people, the inkling that they're, watching something good. I just don't care. At the end of the day, I just don't give a shit about this show. It's not funny enough to warrant 10 episodes. It's really not funny enough so far, at least, to warrant a second season. And I don't know what show people were watching, because like I looked through a couple reviews and I just was like really, like it's so weird. There is, that's the other thing too. There's a point where early on, I think it's like episode 1. Yeah, it is episode 1 where Ned is asking for his things like, I want a traffic reporter. I want someone to be able to do weather. I want someone to be able to do this and that. And he's basically told like, yeah, we don't have the budget for that. The paper has like no budget. And so he straight up asked the people in the office to just do the work for free. Like, hey, if you want to quote volunteer your time unquote, yeah, you can be a reporter. It's like, that's horrible. You're asking people to work for free, you asshole. Like, what the fuck? Like, I have a lot of issues with this show, and really it comes down to the writing. It really comes down to the fact that this show's not as clever as it thinks it is. It's not good enough to warrant the valleys that it really does fall into. And I don't think there's nearly enough peaks to warrant 10 episodes. There is a whole episode about someone getting catfished that I did not think was funny at all, and I just kind of was sitting there going, what, I think it's episode 5. Yeah, episode 5. and I just shook my head. I was just like, this is fucking dumb. Like, this is just a very just lame duck show. Um, yeah, there's just really nothing about this that I thought was good or that I really wanted to even keep watching it. I finished it because I wanted to review it, but that's really where my enjoyment or care of it stopped. I was just kind of flabbergasted with how lazy it was. So, um, yeah, I didn't like this at all. Oh god, what do you want to give this? I'd go D. Yeah, there's really no reason. Actually, no, D minus. I guess I won't go F because I don't even know I won't go F. It'd probably be an F the more I think about it. But yeah, I'll go D minus. But it's not a good show. But again, I fully admit, Parks and Rec season 1 I thought was pretty crap. It was pretty crap. So maybe there's a world that they pull together for season 2. But as someone I'm an NPR fucking listener. Like if there's something that really should have probably spoke to me, it probably should have been this show. And no, I really could not have given less of a fuck. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the paper, but it was not yeah, not good. Not a good show. So, yeah, D minus for the paper. All right. I have got one more review to do before I get out of here. It is for Dexter Motherfucking Rection. Not what it's called, by the way, but Dexter Resurrection. Hyped, fucking hyped that they brought this back. Dexter's such a fascinating show too because they keep finding ways. They just really were like, we are gonna get this right. God damn it! I thought Dexter New Blood was a good show. I think the finale definitely has some plot holes and some stuff that I wasn't a big fan of, but Michael C. Hall versus Mr. Krabs, I thought was I thought was actually pretty interesting. But you could tell, like, as they're kind of showing clips and showing as they're showing clips and they're showing the cast list and everything, um they really hit the ground running with this. They say, hey, Michael C. Hall is back. Of course Michael C. Hall is back. Cool. Oh, hey, Uma Thurman joined the cast. Holy shit. Okay. Peter Dinklage joined the cast. Wait, what the fuck? Kristen Ritter joined the cast. What the fuck? Like, the more they were just rattling off the people who are involved in the show, you're like, holy fuck, this is like an all-star game. Like, they're coming out swinging with this shit. So I was really hyped. I was really excited to see where the show would go and what the show would be. And I won't lie, there was just that part of me that was like, oh God, are you going to fuck this up? Oh God, are you going to fuck this up? Because, with New Blood, I thought there was a great show there. And then it felt like they just dropped the ball in the last couple episodes. So I was really curious going in this, like, can they make this work? Can they stick the landing? And the short answer is, yeah, they can. I was kind of flabbergasted. Dexter Resurrection is an awesome fucking show. I was kind of amazed at how much I liked it. So, as far as the plot itself, it picks up after the events of Dexter New Blood. So, full spoilers for everything up to Dexter Resurrection, which I would assume you wouldn't watch Dexter Resurrection if you haven't seen the rest of the goddamn show, but I digress. So, Dexter Resurrection, though, I am I was really going into it very intrigued. And Michael C. Hall, I don't know how old Michael C. Hall is. He's 54. Okay. Looks really good still too, man. Like good looking dude. But I was very curious how he was gonna play Dexter Morgan coming back from the dead. And this is weirdly this is gonna sound weird, but stick with me. This is kind of like Dexter Skyfall. Like, this is Dexter getting back in the game, getting back to being, proper Dexter, because New Blood, of course, had kills, but he had the big guilt of just losing Deb, played by Jennifer Carpenter. So he had her ghost talking to him, and so it wasn't like like quote pure Dexter, quote unquote. This is more back to basics Dexter. So Dexter wakes up in a hospital bed after being shot by Harrison because he told Harrison at the end of New Blood to go ahead and shoot him because he's bad, he's evil, he needs to be put down. And so he ends up getting shot, wakes up in a hospital. I called this shit. I fucking called this shit because when they announced Dexter Resurrection, I was like, oh, they're gonna say that the cold is what kept his like blood, like him from bleeding out, and that is literally what they fucking say, almost verbatim. Like, well, because the cold was your body was in such cold temperature, we were able to revive you. And I was just like, okay, fine, like fine. If that's the explanation you need to give, fuck it. That works for me. Let's just press forward. But he's visited pretty much immediately by several ghosts, including the ghost of the Trinity Killer, played once again by John Lithgow. And I really love the conversation that him and Lithgow have. John Lithgow, one of the best, like I mean, still the best villain that Dexter has ever tangled with. But having Lithgow back and having them have the whole conversation about Harrison shooting him and what that means for Dexter and what that means for him as a father, as a person, I really like the fact they had that conversation. And Trinity's right. He calls it exactly correct in the sense that he goes, yeah, dude, you thought you could, keep killing people and be a family man, and that you had something to learn from me. And that's what cost your ass, So how bad can I really feel for you? And I appreciate that. I really fucking appreciate that, because that is 1,000% what ended up happening. So I really like that conversation. I love the fact he got to talk to Jimmy Smits's Miguel Prada. I know some people hate on season 3 Dexter. Season 3 is maybe, oh man, that may be my second favorite season. Third favorite, maybe third favorite, because I actually like season 3 more than I probably like season 2, because I just love Dexter having a friend. I just wanted Dexter to have a friend. Obviously, that shit won't last, but I was like, oh come on, Dexter and Miguel, like they could team up and be like, like Starsky and Hutch. Like I wanted that for Dexter, and of course, you won't get it, at least long term, but I really dug that season. Like I really dug that season. So I was really happy to see him talk to Miguel. I was really happy to see him talk to Trinity. But then, the biggest surprise, motherfucker, was oh man, what's his name? Eric King, I believe his actor's name. Who played Sergeant James Dokes. Yeah, Eric King, go me. Yeah, the fact he came back and the fact that he has a conversation with Dexter. And by the way, Michael C. Hall's selling of motherfucker, the way he says it, just like Dokes, half a star up just for that. That was fucking perfection. He nailed the tone and everything in the cadence. Bravo to him on that. But I also found it very interesting that was the last ghost that Dexter talks to. And the fact that Dokes is saying, even though you can be a creep motherfucker, there's a kernel of good in you, Morgan, and that's what your son needs to see. So he says, go to your son, you need to go to him, and share that with him. Otherwise, you are just a creep motherfucker. And he does the whole, like I'm watching you. Like I love that shit. I love that. And Dexter's this season in particular, I would say, is probably the best in terms of using ghosts. But I really dug the way that they did that. I really dug the way that they brought him back, and I really dug the way that I really dug the way that they did that. I was a big fan of I was a big fan of that. I'm a big fan of him. But with that said, Dexter goes ahead and moves forward to going ahead and finding Harrison. He finds out that Harrison has gone to New York, um, which I really do like. I like that too because like I love Miami, like the setting that we got and all that. But I was ready for a change. I was ready for something new. I was ready for I was ready for a change up, and yeah, I was very happy that they went ahead and changed it up a bit, and we got to go to a different spot. New York. I mean, New York is it kind of cliche? Sure. Does it actually kind of make sense given where they're at geographically? Also, sure. So, yeah, I actually wasn't mad at them kind of throwing a little curveball in that sense. But I want to talk about Harrison, who's played by Jack Alcott. I thought he got some rough stuff in Dexter New Blood. I thought he had some shit he had to really wrestle with. But I give the brother a lot of credit, man. I thought he actually did a really good job um in terms of handling the material and really going through all the full gamut of emotions, whether it's in New Blood, realizing that his dad is alive, to realizing what his dad is and how this is a lifestyle for him. Harrison has to really battle with a ton of shit this season and and in New Blood. And I think that Alcott does a really great job of handling a quite a range of emotions that he's having to share to show, and then going ahead and having to process everything. I thought he did an incredible job, and in here, I think he actually elevates his acting because Harrison is allowed to be his own character in this, which I think is really to the strength of the show because he's not just reacting to everything his dad does. Harrison has his own life. Harrison's going out in the club. He's going out to the club like Fitty. He's he's going out. He's flirting a bit. Harrison's got some game. Like Harrison ends up with this one chick that I was like, oh, good for you. I was like, well done. Your dad's not the only one rearranging guts this season. Kapow! But but I really dug Harrison this season, and I will say too the violence in this show because Dexter is always pretty violent, but it was like pretty tame given the fact he's stabbing people. You would see Dexter, initially stab someone. You see a couple people maybe get cut in the face, maybe get shot, but you weren't seeing what this show's showing you. Because Harrison actually ends up killing someone. We find Harrison working at this very high end, this very fancy hotel, and we find this guy who roofies a girl and is clearly going to assault her. And so Harrison ends up helping her get into the room with the guy, and then actually goes into the room, and the guy straight up is just like, get out of here. And he's like, no, no, I'm not doing that. And the guy straight up just goes like, oh yeah, like whatever, fuck this girl. There'll always be others. And when you hear that shit, it's like, what now? It's like, this is gross. Like, what the fuck? And so he ends up killing the guy, like straight up murders the guy. And I will say, given what this fucker was trying to do, I mean, justified, number one. But number two, the way Harrison kills him, he fucks this dude up, boy. Like, it was the level of violence, because again, we're just not used to seeing, that on we're not used to seeing that in Dexter, or at least violence to that degree. And holy shit, like it blew my mind how fucking dark that kill was. I was kind of flabbergasted in the best way. And so that kill goes ahead and kind of sets everything in motion, because now Dexter has a reason to go ahead and try to reconnect with his son, because Harrison knows how his dad killed. He follows his dad's MO, which goes ahead and puts that kill on the radar of David Zayas' Angel Batista, returning from Dexter New Blood and from the OG series. And so you've got Batista coming to potentially get Dexter, Dexter trying to reconnect with his son. We have the two officers from the from the NYPD who go ahead and discover the bag of the body parts of that piece of shit, and so they're starting to look into it. And so there's a lot of moving pieces in this show, and yet as I was sitting there watching, I'm like, oh, like they're balancing everything really fucking well. Like I think from really from episode 1 on, each episode builds on itself in a way that's so fucking just perfect. Like it balances so many of these components that you would think would be really terrifying, in terms of like making sure each thing has its own its ample amount of time to breathe, and yet Dexter does a great job of doing so. Um, I mentioned the guest stars that are in this show, and as I mentioned, the cast list is fucking absurd. You know, Kristen Ritter, Uma Thurman, Peter Dinklage, Neil Patrick Harris, Eric Stonestreet. Yeah, like it's an insane who's who in this show. And what I really liked is that it never feels like anyone is just playing themselves. It does feel like everyone is playing a character. We find out that Peter Dinklage's character, Leon Prater, basically hosts a yearly event, a yearly gathering of serial killers. And that's who the big guest stars are playing. So Kristen Ritter is playing Mia, whose serial killer alias is Lady Vengeance. Uma Thurman plays Charlie, who is Leon's right hand woman, and her backstory is quite interesting. Neil Patrick Harris plays Lowell, who is the tattoo killer. Eric Stonestreet plays Rapunzel, and so so it's very interesting to see how these serial killers interact, and how in some ways they are very similar, but in other ways they are completely fucking different. And that for me was the big crux and the big thing that really made the season work, because while Dexter obviously is a serial killer, and you know, he quote only kills for good, he is still killing people, but it's like these other people have no shame about it. It's fascinating how that works. And episode, I think it's episode 5, episode 5, murder horny. That's a term that Kristen Ritter's Mia drops, where there's this point where her and Dexter are going to team up to kill someone, and Dexter goes ahead and, pun intended, pulls out, and Mia gets fucking mad about it. She's like, I guess you can change your mind. And then she's like, you got me on murder horny. Now I have to go take care of it. And you're just like, whoa. And it's one of those things where you're just like, oh shit, okay. One thing that I really love about this show too, that makes it very different from the original show, is that because we're in New York, you know, very musical town, very musical city, there's a ton of different types of music being used. It's not just like a score. So that was something that actually caught me off guard, because they don't use a ton of not score in Dexter in the original show. It is really score heavy, but they went ahead and they threw in some really random stuff that I really liked, honestly. You know, so whether it's, you know, there's they throw some Black Sabbath in there, they throw in some some Bee Gees, they throw in some Stone Foxes. Um, they threw in some. I'm trying to think of who else they have. There's a great use of the Pixies UMass that oh, I love the way you use that. Um, yeah, there's some Gary Jules that they use. The use of Gary Jules, I won't say what song or when it's used, but whoo, when that song drops, you're just like that needle drop. It guts you, and that's another thing I'll say too is that without spoiling too much, when you find out what Prater's kind of like reasoning is in his origin, it's one of those things where you just go, "Oh fuck no!" It's such a sort of realization when you realize why he is the way he is, and it really does make you look at him completely differently. It's a very ick sort of reaction, but I loved the way that they went ahead and spun that, and the way that they went ahead and laid that out. I love that, and I will say too that Peter Dinklage. I didn't get too much in the Game of Thrones. I only watched the first season, but everyone I've talked to about Game of Thrones um, hates the last season, but also they feel like Dinklage really was the one holding that shit together as it was falling apart at the seams. Like Dinklage was clearly the one who was like game for everything and trying to make everything work until until the end. And him here as Leon Prater, I've seen a good amount of Dinklage's performances, and I just love him in this. There's that charm that you get to Dinklage that you would expect, but the way there is this coldness to him that the show does a really great job of exploring. And when you figure out why he's so cold and what's really going on behind, the mask that he wears, it's really fascinating, and it really makes you look at him differently as the season goes on. For me, this is Michael C. Hall's best performance of Dexter since season 5 for me. I know some people hate on season 5, but I love the Jordan Chase season just because Jordan Chase reminds me so much of Joel Osteen. Um, Go back and watch that season. You'll see why. It is not hard to connect the dots, trust me. But I loved Michael C. Hall in that season. And this is the most I've liked him since season 5. You could honestly argue this is his most complete season of Dexter because Dexter has to deal with loss. He has to deal with his anger. He has to deal with the fact that he's getting older. That's something that the show directly addresses, that he's not a young pup in this game anymore. He's gone through injuries. He was in the hospital. He's gone through some shit. But I really love the way that they presented Dexter this season. I loved the cinematography in this. The cinematography kicks ass in this. I thought the needle drops were fucking pristine. Every death in here has weight to it. Even when Dexter kind of gets back into the fold of things in terms of who he is, that first kill, you're like, oh shit. And the way that Dexter and Prater's paths go ahead and intertwine is really interesting. The way that they go ahead and they explore that. And I thought the finale of season 1 was absolutely fucking perfect. And again, without spoiling too much, what it does set up for season 2 is exactly what I wanted them to do for season 2. It feels like they finally got to a point with Dexter that they wanted to get to with him as a character. And now I think they're just going to show out. Now it's all about like, okay, how much fun can we have with this while maintaining, this great creative momentum that we've created for ourselves. And I'll tell you right now, I'm there season 2, day 1. Getting my final thoughts, I was really nervous going into this. I was really nervous going into this season, and Dexter Resurrection blew my mind in the best way. this is something that I will end up rewatching. Um, but I just had so much fun with this. I found myself cheering. I felt myself like grimacing. I felt myself laughing. Uh, yeah, everything in between. I dug the shit out of this. So this is a fan fucking tastic for me. I absolutely adored the season, and I'll need to watch it again, but it's right there, season 4 for me as like the best season of Dexter. I adore the season. I can't wait to see. They haven't confirmed Resurrection season 2 yet, but they did cancel Dexter Original Sin season 2 after renewing it for season 2. So I'm assuming the trade off is probably you get your next season of of Resurrection, but no more New Blood. But yeah, I dug this a lot. So yeah, fan fucking tastic from me for Dexter Resurrection. So I am gonna go ahead and get on out of here. As far as what we got coming up for the rest of the week, no stream tomorrow or Sunday because I work. Probably do a stream on Monday. I'll figure out something to review. I've got a couple other things I want to review, but I want to get these reviews done in particular. Get back on camera, get back on mic. I might even do a late night stream tonight. I might go watch something right now. I haven't decided, but I might just end up playing Rivals because I do because I do love me some Rivals. So we'll see. But thank you so much, everyone who did tune in today. I hope you're safe. I hope you're well. Please allow yourself some grace. Please do something nice for yourselves. I know the world is a lot and the world is heavy, and it feels like it's all bearing down, but please allow yourself adequate mental health breaks. If you need to get off socials, get off socials. If you need to reach out to your boy, I'm around. Please reach out if you need someone to talk to. But I love y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for those who lurked. Thanks for those of you who DM'd me or texted me. Thank you to those who will watch later. But yeah, I will get a schedule probably up here in the next day or so for next week. But everyone, please stay safe out there. Take care of each other. Give someone a hug. Give someone a compliment. We could all use some more positivity. And never forget, as always, to keep it real. Thank you so much, y'all. And I will talk to y'all soon. Have a good one.